Is this roughly good camera? Sure. So oh, that's not the music is not coming through on the screen. Okay, that's fine. Somewhat. All right. So the plan today is we're gonna unbox some of the cards here. I say some because I have an idea depending on if I get the card in time or not. We're gonna hope this thing does not fall. We're gonna actually attach it just under my my desk mat. Should keep some stabilization. And then we're gonna play Persona 3 Reload after this, because we're somewhat close to the end. And surprisingly enough, I've not finished the game yet. So yeah, let's get going. I'll keep the music somewhat in the background just so I'm not awkwardly whatever. There's a lot of stuff I'm trying to try out with streams as far as like thinking up. I don't know if anybody saw in the chat earlier, but it's fine. Anyway, for those who don't know, this is the second set for the VCard set by GamerSups. I was debating on wearing my GamerSups sweater for this, but I'm gonna wear Demonishki since she's a card in here and channeling her luck. We're gonna be channeling the luck of Demonishki through this sweater. My friend Annie, who I have a little thing standing over there, and my cosplayer VTuber loving friend Jean Wan. All right. So by the way, just so it's because I didn't realize it's in the background. Where's it at here? 32 booster packs, 1 box topper, and each pack contains 10 random cards of 546 different ones. I did not realize there was this many cards, and I'm surprised. How do I open this thing? Oh my god, am I gonna break this? The box is so nice, I don't want to break it. What does this do? Oh, okay. I'm scared. Hang on. Oh my god. I'm gonna hope someone else had the same issue. Oh my god, I'm gonna knock this camera over. Oh wait, we're good. Here's our deck topper. We're starting off, of course, with people. Unfortunately, I don't know every single VTuber. Surprisingly enough, the rest of the ones on the thing aren't here. So let's see. This is, what does it say? 2 artist series cards, including 1 rules card. Oh, neat. So there are a few main cards I'm looking for. We'll see how that goes afterwards. I like how this says baddie on it. I hope this is a clear indicator of who I got. Is it behind here? Oh my god. Oh my god, we actually got Bao. Alright, well that's 1. And the others are is this normal? Is this normal to get the 2? I don't know. And this one's signed too. Of all the fucking, okay. Well, there's that. I can't tell the signature on this one, but this is a nice art. Anyway, yeah, cool. So we got 2 Bao card toppers here. Well, I guess this one's really the topper. This one is the rules card, but still, it's neat. And chat snack, hello. Oh my god, is this your first time chatting on here? Really? Hey there, how are you doing today? Fright Fest 20. Interesting. Why is the chat like squished on my screen? Oh no. Okay, hang on. That's slightly bothering me. How do I fix this? Oh, that did not work. Okay, well this is gonna be a pain. We'll pretend like that fit. I hope you're doing well. I know, like, where have I been hiding? I mean, you've been grinding it on some games, so that's fine. But we're just doing a random unboxing of the VTuber card set here. Good things. I'm doing well. I'm finally over my holiday flu that a lot of people have been having. I can't figure out how to get this chat to work better. I think that's the best I can get it, like, to like fit in this box. This is a weird setup I have going on here, so we're hoping that it works out fine. I don't know if you were here just like a minute ago. I'm glad to see you better. Yeah, I'm feeling much better, thankfully. We got some what's it called? Deck toppers? Was that what it's called? Oh wait, never mind. It's there you go. The names are here. Just the cards themed after it. So we got Bao, we got Baddie, and then we got Bao again as her Baoberry form. But yeah, so there are 32 Right? Is that right? 32? 32 booster packs. And we're seeing which ones of these we can get. I gotta save one because there's a stupid idea I have in mind for a TikTok for it. Also, I don't even know how to do this right. Ugh. Alright. So if I recall right, we can just flip it over here. So we got a Shy Lily spoof. No god, I can't even like think. Petal Pals for Veil. Garden Keeper Sky Haze. Cottontail. Let's go. Sanson? Did I say that right? I think so. Also, I don't know how loud the music is because it's not actually, I don't have it set to come through OBS. So it's playing through my speakers. I don't want it too loud. We'll leave it like that. That's fine. Can you just find? Perfect. Who's this now? Sorui? I guess this is a, this is a world card. I don't know the full rules for this. Music isn't too loud. Okay, perfect. We got Restraining Order, and it's hollow. Oh my god, ChaCha. And Guilty by Shoto. Damn, that's a hollow thing. Alright, I do have some sleeves. I don't even know if these fit the V cards, so we're gonna test it out now. That's probably gonna be the loudest thing on this thing. Alright, so first things first, ChaCha. Fits kind of fine, perfectly. Well, perfectly is a strong word. Here, you can stay back there. What was a hollow one? The Guilty one. Uh-oh, I'm gonna hit my mic. And let's see. I want like the main VTuber ones featured. And well, I gotta keep the hollow on the side, of course. Phone, move it. And the mascots. Oh, this is a horrible setup. This desk is too small. Okay. Let me. Box, you can move. We've already seen you. We'll put you. Oh god, it's not. There's no space on my desk. let me turn this keyboard off. Put it on top of there. Okay. Put you here, and then you guys here. All right. Hollow, you can stay back here. Oh wait, I lied. This is also hollow. Okay, you know what? We're just gonna borrow my keyboard then. It's gonna block everything up, and then the world can go right down here. All right, that's one. And to the second pack. Right, here we go. By the way, I've been waiting for these for like half a year, so like I'm a little bit excited. These look super cute. It's not something I've ever collected. To be fair, they wouldn't be safe. Yeah, that's fair. Thankfully enough, I have the kind of space for that, more or less. But yeah, I would not trust little demons around these. A lot of my stuff around on my gaming space would be like that. All right. Oh, speaking of which, there's a song by one of my VTuber friends playing right now, so that's hopefully channeling some luck. All right. Starting off next, we got Yolk by Egg. Oh, this is a mascot, right? Yeah. LucyPyre's Dark Demonite. Astro by Milky. That's cute. Oh my god, we got Deme! Okay. It's not hollow, unfortunately, but we got one of the VTuber ones. Who we got? Croaky by... Oh no, this is actually Croaky. It'll be Katy Cat. Okay. Oh, okay. Well then. What the fuck is this? All right, sure. Yeah. I don't even know where to put this card. Are they here? 40 privilege. Ooh. Oh wait, a full art? Oh, 9. And another Demonite by Hollow. Who's this one? Yenko. It's like honestly, I can see it. Yeah. All right. Where'd my sleeves go? Let's put. It's fucked up. Let me see here. Where's what Hollow? The Demonite, right? Yeah. Oh, the other side. Come in here. You can stay here in front of Shoto's Guildie that's not covered. We can put Lacree down over here, and this is the hollow, which I misplaced up right here. And Yenko. Yenko. Oh, I should make sure I put these ones also. Thing. Put there, and that's the pack, right? That is the pack. Need to share that one with her? Honestly, yeah. I will ship this to you if you need to. As a matter of fact, we're gonna keep this one perfectly on the side. If I get a second one, I will definitely try to see if I can, like, respectfully paint over the name to say Lacree. Actually, Soaked in Happiness might still work, to be honest. Alright. Next pack. How many packs was this already? 3? I'm gonna go with 3. So there's 32, right? So at least save maybe 5, depending. Alright. Anyway, next up, we got Oni Fan from Akumi. Scuffling by Amalee. Lovely. Oh my god. This is actually nice art of it. The butterfly, the tea, the glasses, the gun. Glow Stick by Ariel. Heavenly. Let's go. Okay. Ikumi. Oh, those are kind of nice if you know what I'm saying. Anyway. Another OB Katy Cat. What song is playing right now? What the fuck is this song? Hang on. Who's this by? Sea Dog. Yeah, Connor. Oh, it's Bayonetta. Okay, that's fine. World premiere. This is a support card, right? So I guess we can put that with Lacree on the side over there. Catatonic by Queso. Ariel, 9 full cart, and Bun Nerd from Yenko. Oh wow, so we got Yenko and her mascot. Perfect. And it's hollow. Sleeve, where you at? Top is here. I already forgot which one was the hollow. Was Queso the hollow one? I don't. Oh my god, wait, was he? No, he's not. I don't think he is. No. Damn, I already forgot where I messed it was. Oopsies, unfortunately. Alright. That's 3. I wish I could have another camera showing me just slamming it into the trash can over there. Alright, next pack by Numi. We're featuring Numi on the cover. Alright. Swear, one day I'm gonna like end up fucking up these cards. Or something. Alright, starting off with Pokato. Squatchon? Scoochon. Yeah, I said that right. Rar. XD. To spite. I don't know why that took a minute. I can't read. Reading is hard. Psychopath from Zuko. Oh, wow. The Numi pack and we got Numi. That's... Alright, perfect. You know what? You can stay here, Numi. Scoochon. Neanners. I think this is a Nags card, right? Yeah, it says Nags down there in the bottom. Right here somewhere. GG Easy. Ooh, this is a pretty, alright, supports. What's it again? Hollow, Spring Path, and Linked World. Kamimi! Oh, and Heavenly. Oh my god, wow, this is a hollow. Wait, is this hollow? Or is this, like, an extra one? I don't know, but it's nice. 9. Do you have Carpal Tunnel yet? Yes, actually I do. Alright, well, that's 2 here going here. Well, 3, because I'm going to put Numi in the one. If I can grab the damn thing! Alright, so here, Heavenly. I already grabbed you first. You can be here. You can go... Oh my god. Up here with ChaCha. Kamimi. That's hollow? Okay. Is it both hollow? Wait, hang on. Where's the box at? Let me see what it says here. Okay, so there's... The total set is 76 toppers, 15 worlds, 53 mascots, 53 uncommon, rare, ultra rare, support, secret rares. They look it. They do look it, 100%. Especially Camila and Heavenly. But I'm trying to figure out if there's like another holo thing after that. I don't know. Cards are weird for me. I'm only a digital card collector, so. Oh boy, Megalovania's playing now. Oh wow, there's one already here for Numi. There we go. All right, to the next pack. Next pack's featuring Bow. I'm trying to see if this says anything else about it. So far, no. All right. Don't rip anything. Okay. I'm scared I'm gonna knock my phone over. Oh my God, Pac-Man. Hey, how you doing? Just leave the pretty hollows. Yeah, that's pretty much what the plan is. And then there's special ones for Numi. Appreciate the lurk pack. I think she'll do lurk beginning. Then it counts. What we got here? Neanders' Goro doing some poker, I guess. Akimono by Nanoless. I don't know why that took a minute. Al Candy Lab Chat. Ikumi again. And Juniper. What is that? Actius? I've actually not seen this card. Like, from even anybody I've seen open it. Interesting. Alright. There. Then there's Spite. Hot Pot. Hang on. Making sure my cards are like not sloppily, what do you call it? I got Karma? Yeah. This is a port card. Who's this by? Trash Mobs? Huh, interesting. Oh, speaking of Hollow. Oh my God, I'm gonna knock something over. By who? I can't even read this name. Smee? Smy? I don't know. I like it though. Alright, let's put it here. Oh my God, Vey, hello. Oh, look at that. And and we got Juniper as a hollow. Alright. I'll gladly put the full arts just for because I think there's the way the cards work, there's 8, 9, and 10. 10 being like the full evolution form, something like that. But also it's Vey, so like, you know. Alright, there you go, Vey. Here for, if I can take this thing off for Juniper. This is a nice hollow though. Oh my God. Alright, the bow pack was pretty helpful. Alright. And then splash damage. There we go. I'm gonna hope this thing does not get muted because of the song. It's for a specific reason. Oops, forgot to dump the pack away. Oh, I missed the trash can. Alright, we'll grab it in a minute. Oh, speaking of which, this one is also hollow, so I should highlight this one real quick. Hello? There we go. We can stay on top of here for now. What song is this one? Alright, next. What is this? Oh, Dragon Roost Island. Of course. Alrighty. What's this one again? Bow? Yep. I get off. Okay. Yeah, appreciate it for stopping by. I'm sure there'll be a lot of other amazing cards too. And hopefully the VOD stays up anyway. But I appreciate you stopping by, chat snack. Until next time. Popping again soon. Appreciate it. Alright, we're starting off with Goro again. Limon by, is this Lime? Limu? Yep. Metal Bradley. I like this card. This is cool. This one's a cool one. Who's this by? Lord Aethelstan. Noted. Oh, CyYu. Alright. Take care. Take care! Yeah, this V2 has on the list. No. Oh, look, Deme's behind him too. CyYu Shark Mode. Sick. Another Deme. Totless. Ooh, a few VTubers this time. Academic Advisor. Yeah, here, I'll tell you what, chat snack. If, I don't know if you're still lurking in a minute. If the other card's gonna be Lacree, this one, I'll let you be this one. Support goes here. Another Hot Pot. Oh my God. Captain Hannah. 9. Oh my God, Hollow Lucy. Alright. Solid. This is nice art, just saying. Anyway. The first Lucy card. Well, I guess not first Lucy card, but first of like actually Lucy, and it's gonna be hollow. It's nice. You can stay there. Did I throw the pack away? No, I didn't. This one's already falling apart. I don't think the music's being too loud, thankfully, but that's fine. Alright, that one made it into the trash can. Alright, to the next pack. Who's getting this? Silvervale? I forgot. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I'm a fake fan. What can I say? Like, I only know like half the actual VTubers listed here. There we go. Alright. Alright, we are starting off with Koga by Yuzu. Yuzu's little moth thing? I don't know. Here we have a Bowble Buddy for Bow. Burnt Pup by Buff Pup, I think. Yep. Another Juniper. Whoop. Oni Kanze? Kanze? Oh boy. Maybe some egg! Vaulted Treasury. Full art. Brick by Brick. Was this by oh, Bricky. Okay. Ooh, Spring Bow. Oh wow, Double Trigger's playing. That's funny. There's a specific reason why that's funny. It's because I was jamming up to it before I switched the disc and my PlayStation for it. Now you can stay here. And Hala Oni fan. Alrighty, get the sleeves out. Here you go, Hala Oni. Fit! You know what's the worst part is that I wanted to look through it to make sure I didn't miss any of what do you call it? Hollows for the others. I should put the full arts of the, well, not full art, the next level ones for these. Hang on, so let me do that now. So let's see. Full. Well, Kamimi was hollow, so she can stay there. ChaCha. Vey's not hollow, right? Vey's not hollow. Okay. Oh boy, this is gonna be awful. Don't fall. Do not fall. Okay. Alrighty. Let me put these back in the order I had them. Was Vey before Hannah? I think so. Yep. You're gonna fall. Cool. Alright. That's one another pack done. Huh. Oh my god, that almost did not make it. Alright, I already lost count again how many packs I've done so far. Oh my god, there's another pack I didn't throw away. And that one missed. Okay. Alright, here we are. Pack number something. Let me count real quick. Now I'm curious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're gonna say this is pack number 8. So far, surprisingly, I've not gotten the card I was expecting to get. For reasons. And for the stupid TikTok idea I have. Okay. And before it's in this one. Watch. Ah, hit the card. Alright. We got Trickster by Tricky. And, I'm sorry, we're just reading it. Gary by Vey. Whoop. Cutie Pie by ChaCha. Ikumi again. Oh, Joel. Porcelain Maid. Oh my god, the face. Poseidon. Nice. Oh, I put Joel in the wrong one. Shit. Another Cosmic Lighthouse. Moist. Ariel again. Wow. Did I have this exact one too? I don't know. Oh my god. Bro, what the? Bro, Juniper. This is what these arts of yours that are so good. And it's hollow. Okay. Alright, I think I'm officially got to become a Juniper stan. This is the first 10 too. I think the only other 10 I got was in that booster pack, or was that a 9? This was a... Oh, that was a 9 for Yuzu. Okay. From, like, the first set, I believe. God damn, though. Alright. Perfect. I can just put it there. Alright. Here, you can go right in here. Behind everybody else. I missed again. That was a good one. Oh my god. Alright, Shy Lily. First pack for Shy Lily. Oh, that did not open as well as I thought that would. Whoop! Okay, I missed it. Hopefully that's not going to cause me bad luck. Bam! Alright, we're starting off with Oni's Nobu mascot. Whoop. Yolk by Egg. I think I had Yolk already. Oh my god, what are you doing? Put the fork down. Okay. Cutie Pie by ChaCha. Once again. Toma. Are you switching a ant? Nice art. Anyway, Totless again. Hang on, sorry. I'm fixing up the sides here. You can probably see it anyway. Whoop. Tricky! First Tricky card. Let's go. Oh, I put Moist in the wrong spot. Now that I realize it. This is not hollow, right? I'm making sure I don't miss it. No, the next one is hollow. God damn it. We got Hollow Lacree, aka Soaked in Happiness by Cyanide in Happiness. Plays misuse his ability. Nice art. Alright, well, let's go. Oh my god, Ain and Freakbot by Heavenly. We got a Hollow Heavenly and Freakbot? Wow. Yo, this is sick art. Age, infinite, height, 5'5", weight, 121 pounds. Bang. Nice. Alright. Hang on. Oops, missed. There we go. You can join Bao and ChaCha on the rest here. And the Heavenly Freakbot can join OniFan and the other ones here. Wasn't Gildy, I think? Maybe. But LucyPyre's gonna knock down everybody here. So many of these ones hollow. Oh, right, and we got the hollow Cyanide. You can join over here. Flop. I missed. This is a horrible way to set this up, by the way. I only have myself to blame, though. Don't worry. I guess we could do, like, maybe half of these. I don't even know. Anyway, Bao luck time. Hello, music? Are you playing? Oh, you are. Oh, you're playing the P5X one. All right. Whoop. I missed again. God damn it. Off my game. All right, we got Cattens by Katie. Another Dark Demonite for Lucy. Whoop. Another Astro for Milky. Milky? Milky. Alcandy. Alcandy? Yeah. Eye Candy? Is that a... That's gotta be an eye, I guess. And whoop. Another Tricky. Another Vite. Oh my god. I'm freaking... No Ray card, surprisingly. Grand Quarter. Full art. Whoop. Well, that's... I'm spoiling the end right there. So let's just... Swagger Souls. Oh, full card Heavenly. Wait, how did the other one look real quick? Ooh, interesting. Alright, so we got a full art Heavenly and a... Wow. It's a hollow Milky. Okay. Okay, anyway. Yeah. Beautiful. I just realized the word I said, but you know what? It's fine. We're committing to the bit now. Well, all right. Okay. I think we're getting a little too full with these. This is my spots on my keyboard. As long as I'm not pressing anything, I'm fine. And let's go put full art 9 Heavenly. I guess 9 is always full art, maybe. I wonder if Juniper... Oh my god, my cards, they all fell! Okay, hang on. Yep, all the 9s just fell. Thank god I had this, the sleeves on them. Alrighty, how do we want to organize this? I don't even know. I guess we'll put them on the side because at this point it's just gonna be like too much. Next pack. Oh, got another Shy Lily pack. Boink. And Shy Lily we trust. Whoop. As I miss again the trash can. All right, we got Blockheads for Joel. Yep. Here. Got Cottontail's Fluffers. B Shark Mode mascot for CyYu. Yep. Whoop. Froggy Lock. Oh, Froggy. Okay. I don't know why I took a second there. Captain Hannah. Vay. Oh, careful. Do not reveal anything. Another fucking something happiness. God. Oh my God. Stop falling. Ooh. Sweet Domain. Haha, I get a domain because domain expansion. Oh my God. Sun Goddess Silver Veil. Hollow. Followed by mascot Gumi for Ikumi. Woo! Alright. Guys, I got bad news. I'm getting hungry. Hollow mascot, right. Surprisingly, the mascots are still, like, fitting onto the thing. And we can put Hollow Silver Veil. Sun Goddess form. Oh my God, wait. The hollow part, when it reflects off the eye makeup is sick. Oh my God, that's awesome. Let's put you there, almost. Okay. Go over here, right on top of Heavenly Paws. And the next pack. Woo! I don't think I got her yet. All right, on to pack. I already lost count again. At least that one made in the trash can. So we're gonna say this is 12. We're starting off with Rar, Miss Spite. Whoop. Baby Moth for Juniper. Oh my God, more Juniper stuff. Okay. Axel for Cocoa Nuts. Whoop. Another CyYu. And careful, don't reveal anything else previously. Oh, Gardner Shoto. Oh my God, we actually got Shy Lily. Okay, perfect. When your op evolves a VT crit +1 PL. Okay, I'll eventually look how to do this thing. Pretty privilege. Oh, I think that spoiled it. I think it might have been Vay. Underworld. Oh, Sarwe. Oh my God, it's like a Kill la Kill inspired outfit. As an elite operative of Ground Zero, Sarwe fights the Council, a tyrannical force that rose from the ashes of a broken world, and now rules the fear and control. Followed by Poseidon Hollow. Okay. I'm not gonna grab anything here. Let's go ahead and shove Sarwe into this. Yep, now you can go on top of Silverveil. And Poseidon, you can come right over here, right next to Milky. Oh my God, fit! There we go. Let me update it here. Alright, on to the next pack. How are we doing so far? So far, okay. Alright, now for Silverveil luck. Solid opening. Okay. And boop. I missed. Okay. Alright. Starting off with some more blockheads. Yakimono. And oh, another Gumi. Gambler Diariku. Okay, so wait. So I think this is the previous one I got too. From the booster pack for the first set. Oh wow, I didn't realize this previous topper one. Interesting. Where to go? This is the previous thing. Oh yeah, Diariku here. Nice. Okay, cool. Speaking of which, I should make sure to put these in sleeves as well. This one wasn't hollow, right? No, it wasn't. Whoop. Ellie. Now that's a nice art. Whoop. Oh my God, we got Fifi. Now we just need the other card. Sorry, for a minute I couldn't tell if this art was like not faded. I don't know the word for it. Another privilege. I just spoiled. Oh my god, is that another Milky? Oh, Akumi, full art, 9. Stinky Oni finally taking a well-needed bath in an onsen with friends. Neat. Oh no, it's Astra. Okay, it's Milky's mascot though. All right. Something just lit up. I don't know what it was on my phone. Oh, this is getting full now. And let's go put Akumi onto here. What an art! Oh my god. Here we go. Where am I? Oh, 9s are here, right? Next pack. How many packs are we doing this? How are we at so far? I'm just gonna count real quick. A couple. I like the song that's playing right now. My bad. Okay, battle luck time. Pop. There we go. And swing. Missed. Okay. All right. We got a Nobu for Oni. Oni Kenzai. Yolk. I got a lot of mascots now that I'm looking at it. Blockheads. More mascots. Amalee. All right. Okay. Vexoria, the Sun Eater. Vienna. I was gonna make another joke, but I think someone already made the joke. Conbini? Sure. Out to Pasture? Sure. By Schlatt. Oh my god, I'm hitting up there. I put the wrong cards everywhere! Oh my god. Is this hollow? Oh, this is hollow. 9 Akumi. And a shiny Metal Bradley. Alright. Let's go ahead and put some sleeves onto here. Wait, are these 9s are all the 9s hollow? No, not all the 9s are hollow, of course not. Also, this is just proof that it's not all 9 hollows. Alright, but the 9 goes there. Metal Bradley. Alright, the mascots are getting full, so let's just put you on the keyboard. I'm gonna put J Schlatt's hollow out to Pasture. I think it's hollow. It looks hollow. I don't have that many support hollows, so. What am I missing here? I got a lot of sleeves, so I don't have to worry too much about it. Next one. Another Battle Luck. Oh, there we go. Okay. Whoop. Almost, unfortunately. Limon. Another Metal Bradley. Whoop. Dark Demonite. Fifi again. Freem. Okay. First Freem card. Garden Keeper Sky. Strombolian Cradle. Hollow Spring Path. But did I put all the... No, I guess all the splits are there. Oh my god. Hollow Ghost Tricky 9. And Hollow Gumi. Didn't I have a Hollow Gumi? I could have sworn I did. Oh my. I like that a few of the hollows are 9s though. That's making me happy. What song is this one? It sounds like, yeah, you will know her names. Oh my god, phone. Or watch, rather. What the fuck was this? Oh, great. Work is not looking nice. Uh-oh. Oh, my hand was just there. Never mind. I thought my screen froze. Alright, the Hollow Spring Path. If I can... And... Oh my god. I'm knocking this camera all over the damn place. Grab the thing. Put Gumi's... I'm sorry. Ikumi's Gumi into here. And this is getting a little full. We'll put it on the side here. Alright, next pack. Alright, Akumi, look. that was overshot the trash can. God damn it. Alright, we got Cleo for Victoria. I don't think I had this one yet. Noodle for Vienna. Also, I don't think I had this one. Bunnerd. Careful here. Rainho. Alright. Ein. I think I said that right. Ein. I'm sure I did. I'm positive. Sanson. Did I get Sanson in the first pack or so and then just shouldn't? Okay. Another restraining order. Whoop. Shimmering Depths. Players that merge a V2 they control. Hollow. Another 9 Hollow Heavenly. And Hollow Boomy for Deme. Alright. Yep, this is the right way. I think. Yep. Bro, a lot of Heavenly cards. Also, a few of them being hollow, too. We got his mascot hollow as well. And then I have an 8 and a 9 hollow. All we need is a 10 hollow. Alright, on to the next pack. Alright, you know, we haven't opened a Numi pack in a minute, so we'll go with Numi Luck. Alright. Whoop. That didn't even go close to it. Alright, starting off with Bro for Ein. Whoop. Forest Ollie for Sanson, which I think this is the only other Sanson card I got that wasn't Sanson. Axel again for, who's this again? Coco? Coco. Whoop. Ellie. Whoop. Spite. And Scoochon. I'm pretty sure I'm saying this wrong. I don't know why, but I feel like I am. The Grand Quarter, as this freaking thing. Hot Pot. Oh, wow. 9 Cocoa Nuts. With a hollow Ein. Coconut's not hollow, unfortunately. But it's another 9, and it's the first Coconuts card. Well, Coconuts, specifically. I think we've literally only gotten Axel. Otherwise. I gotta hope this thing's on repeat, because this thing's gonna suddenly stop. I'm gonna be like, oh. Alright. There you go. Ein. Here we go. Oh my god, don't fall. Don't fall. Don't fall. More or less. Okay. Alright. Silver Veil. Oop. Ah. What song is this one? Oh, Porter Robinson. I'm going to pretend that this is going to be okay to play because it's the League of Legends song with him. So, you would think that it's already, safe. Whoop. That almost worked. Oh my god, it's just being a mess to clean up. Alright, Benson for Numi. Goro again. Kattens. Oh wow, there's coconuts again. Another Joel. Poseidon. The Velvet Concord. Massive Legend. And Campfire Buff Pup. This is kind of nice. And Koga for Liuzu. Alright. So Buff Pup is a 9. Nice. You can go there, right on top of Coco. Hollow Koga for Yuzu. We're getting full. And then Hollow Massive Legend. Who's this one here? Max Mofo? Sure. Yeah, I said that right. Grab the sting. There we go. I wonder if I open this upside down. The sleeve pack. Support though, they go up here. Alrighty. here we go with Akumi again. I don't know how many more left. I'm surprised that I've not gotten the card I was expecting to get. And I keep missing the trash can. Alright, Pokato? Pokato. Whoop. Psychopath. Whoop. Limon, again. I like saying it like that. I hope that is right. Another Deme. Whoop. Croaky. And another Silver Veil. Crimson Festival. Full art. Hollow Crimson Festival. Oh yeah, you can tell on the camera for sure. Cottontail 9 full art. And Hollow Spoof for Lily. Alright. Alright, that can go there. Oh my god. I forgot I had a drink up here. Hollow Spoof. Oh, no, I'm not speaking of Persona 3 Reload. I don't know how many more packs I got left, but I know I don't want to open all of them up. I need to save at least maybe 3. Okay, we got here Numi luck for pack number something. Let's say 20. Pretty sure it's more than 20 by this point. And then we got Persona 3 Reload music for extra luck. Okay, I've missed the trash can like 6 times in a row. All right, Cerberus for Saori. Another Guildie. I think this is the first Guildie I got since the first time I opened one, and it was hollow. Spoof. Suko. This is a pretty art. Toma. Totless again. Swagger's helmet. Hollow Secret Grove. Oh, Hollow 9 Neanners. And Hollow Sanson. This is a nice one. Alright. You can slide into there. And then go on top of Cotton. Secret Grove. And... sorry, coughing. And Sanson. Oh, wow. 8s are here. Let me just take a drink real quick. Just to be safe that I don't spill this, I'm going to put it down here. I forget all about it. Alright, one more Numi. Okay, I can't put it in the trash can for some reason. Speaking of Numi, Benson. Another Limon. Metal Bradley. Surprisingly enough, no Ray cards. Another Fifi card. Frame. Another Ghost Tricky. Splash Damage. Out to Paster. Followed by Limu 9 full art. Water Ferret is not the same thing as an otter. Okay. And Hollow Sarai. Don't I have this one too? The specific 8? Oh, another Persona song. Cool. Bit! Lime, get in the sleeve. Thank you. Respectfully. And please. Alright, Sarai. Go. I'm sure that could fit, right? Yeah. Alright. We got next. Our lovely water ladies, Bow, and then Shy Lilies after this. rip. There we go. Wow, the bow sleeve went, the bow wrapper went inside. Pool party joy for Rainhell. Good first time for this one. Another Benson for Numi. Astro for who was Milky. Froggy Lock. Captain Hannah. Heavenly. Press Your Luck. The Anime Men. Academic Advisor. 9 Ghost Tricky. And Hollow Ikumi. I believe this one for sure is I did get. Alright, let's put 9 Ghost Tricky. Didn't I have a 9 Ghost Tricky that was hollow? Wait, did I? Hang on. Oh my god, I did. That's holy shit. Have I only gotten 110? Yeah, 110, and it's been Juniper. Usurper of Loon. Alright, next pack. Oh wow, wait, we actually are close to the end of the box. Okay, not entirely, but let me see. This is 4 packs. And okay, we got 8 packs left. I lied. This is 5. 9 packs left. Alright. Alright, so I guess we'll open up 3 more or so. Sorry, the music caught me off guard a little bit. League. I'll put this on loop just to make sure it does repeat in case I'm there that long. Okay. Oh my god, I'm knocking everything over. Alright, Silverveil. Surprisingly enough, all this, and I still have not gotten the one card I'm hoping to do a stupid meme for. We got Kattens, Nobu, Metal Bradley. I think it does count as a mascot card too, so that's the funny part. ChaCha, Cotton, CyYu, Tit for Tat. That Meat Canyon? Oh my god. Massive Legend. No, I have the other Lily pack there. 9 Vienna. Oh wait, hang on, sorry. I just realized I ended up putting up a hollow thing here when it's supposed to go here. It's upside down, I'm sorry. 9 Vienna and Oni Kanze 8 hollow. What are you holding? Age 668 years. 5'7", weight 58 kilograms. An immortal celestial dragon born of constellations long past. That's a nice title. Alright. This way. Oh, I gotta get on. Blop here. And Oni. Ooh, excuse me. I hope that wasn't audible. I'm pretty sure it was, but hello. Fit in the sleep. Thank you. Alright. Now that Charlotte's pack has been right here. I missed overshot. All right. Ikamaru. Boomy. What the fuck? Was that my phone? This phone? That was this phone. Oh, speaking of which, I'm Silverveil. Going live. Doki Amber Doge. Doge. That's a Doge, right? Yeah, totally. Heavenly, once again. Ikumi. Vexoria. Pretty Privilege. Underworld. 9 Sanson. I don't know if I have 9, so let's maybe here. And Baby Mod for Juniper. Oh my god, another Hollow Juniper related card. Bit. Alright. Sanson. Did I have a 9 of you already? I do not. No, I do not. Okay. Okay. For a minute, I forgot how to do anything. Not hollow, right? No, it's not hollow. It's just a 9. Okay. Blop. All right. I don't know, 2-3 more packs, depending. All right. Shy Lily, channel your luck for me, please, along with everything else. As I missed again. All right, we got a Goro. I'm freaking gonna sleep the packs the entire time. There we go. Simp or Chimp for Camila. Freem. Welcome back to the fray. Whoop. Akumi. Yuzu. Massive Legend again. Hollow Massive Legend again. 9 Rainho. Jesus, what a title. And First Mate Ollie, Hollow. Or Rainho. I mean Hannah. Rainho's this one, right? I'm not gonna read that caption due to what it says. There you go. What's going on? Music. Oh. There you go, Rainho. Oh, isn't this Amalee song too? The cover? Yes it is. It's... Oh god, okay. God, we are... I don't think I can get any more packs, can I? Probably not. Who's the Shy Lily? Shy Lily. Okay, hang on. I want to keep make sure I keep count of cards, packs. All right, I will open up one more pack. Oh my god, guys, the last packs after this. We got 2 Akumis, 1 Shy Lily, and 3 Numis. All right, we'll put Numi next, and that'll be the last one until I don't know, whenever. All right, we'll do these last 2 packs. Shy Lily and Numi. All right, so boom, that one made it surprisingly. All right, we got Pool Party Droid, bro. Ooh. Giga Gamblin'. I think this is the first time I got this one. Juniper, her 8. Actually, did I have an 8 for Juniper already? I don't know. Vienna. Yenko. Cyanide Chan's Revenge. Foreplay. 9 Sorry. And a Hollow Mask Axel. I think I did have 9 Sorry already. I think so. Mascots. Alright, well, this will be the last pack, so I'll open here. Alright, Numi. May your luck channel into here. Actually, should I just open them all? Maybe I should just open them all. Alright, Cerberus. The mascot. Scuffling. Glow stick for Ariel. Is it Ariel or Ariel? Oh my god, I can't breathe. ChaCha. Cotton. Silverveil. Swagger's helmet. Unfortunately, I know the next one's hollow, but it is a pretty privilege. Wow, that is a very different art for the last one. Oh my god, it's falling. Shit, hang on. Because it's on my phone. That's part of the problem. Here, you can go there. All right. Pretty privilege. 9 Camila. And a 10 Alki Candy. There's nowhere you can run and nowhere you can hide from Alcina Candle, better known as Eye Candy. Forfeit your life and accept the inevitable. Okay. All right. Whatever you say, I. All right, phone, you go there. Well, solid last 3. Was the Camila 9 too? Yeah, the Camila was a 9 for sure. Number full art, pretty privilege. Hollow. Support card, so it goes up top here. Actually, that's been a while since I had a new hollow support card. Alright, so first, okay, so we are gonna, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna open them all. If we get the thing in the last pack, then, oh well, it happens. Did I take the pack out already? Was that wait, which one was that one? Oh, that was Numi. Alright. Fuck it. We ball. Alright, I'm gonna order this here. We're gonna open up an Akumi. We'll leave it to Shy Lily, to Numi. Put Akumi there, Numi, and then Shy Lily finishes it off. That being said, if I do open up the card that I'm trying to get for a stupid meme, I will stop the packing, the unwrapping. What do you call this thing? Okay, it caught on the rim of the trash can. All right, Oni fan. Oh, look at that by Kumi. Yo, I'm channeling the luck. Fluffer by Cottontail, right? B. Juniper. Cocoa Nuts. Sarwe. Tit for Tat. Massive Legend. 9 Spring Bow. Was that the 9 I had too, or was it just I don't know. And Dad, Doki Amber Doge. Hollow. This is 9, right? Yeah, that's 9. Reason why April showers bring May flowers. What? Okay. Anyway. I know I had a bow card. Spring. I think it was 8 actually. I don't know. Oh well. Well, too late. It's gone into the sleeve anyway. All right. Here and then the Doki Amber Doge. And this is mascot, so you go right here on top of Axel. All right. Numi luck time. It's gonna be so fun to try to organize later. That did not go anywhere. All right. All right. We got Gildy for by Shota. Spoof for Lily. Bauble Buddy. CyYu. Careful the way to go. Another Deme. Croaky. Splash damage. Out to Pasture. Number 9 ChaCha. And an 8 Hannah. Then I had the... Oh no, I think that it was a 9 for Hannah. Alright. But we keep all the hollows safe anyway. Oh, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. Don't fall, don't fall. Okay. What's ChaCha say? Fear the Chunkla. Yes, that is in fact a fact. Alright. Last pack with Akumi. That leaves 2 more after this one. Goga for Yuzu. Boomy for Deme. Lab Chat for I. Limu. Oh wow, Lord Athelston. Like, I've gotten your damn Metal Bradley the entire time. Why is this upside down? Why was this upside down? Wait, huh? Why was this one upside down? Okay. Absurdo. Soaked in happiness. Pretty privilege. 9 buff pup. And an 8 Vey hollow. Actually, I don't think I have Vey's hollow. Or at least 8 for sure. So I got your hollow for this set, and then the hollow for the previous set. Okay. Werewolf was by a campfire. Okay. I don't think I had 9 buff pup. Actually, I think I did. Did I? I want to say I did. I do. Not hollow. This was not hollow either, right? Damn, it's not. Oh well. It's okay, buff pup. Still don't know why that Shoto card was upside down. Okay, second to last pack. Channeling the Numi luck. So wait, so this is what, 300 and some cards? That did not go anywhere. Petal Pals for a Silver Veil. Alright, so I'm going to just say it now. I'm trying to get the Fifi's Feet card for a stupid as TikTok meme idea I have. With that one audio. I think you know the specifically feet one audio. I'm going to hope people know what I'm talking about. Oh, sorry, this thing's a lot of text. Okay. Anyways, that was Diariku, Keeper Sky, Spite, Strombolian Cradle. Oh my god, we finally got a Ray card. Holy shit, let's go. Okay. And this is one of the alt arts, I believe. 9 Cotton and 8 Hollow Silver Veil. Okay. Ray, because I'm biased to you and a long-time fan, I'm putting you in a sleeve. Another thing. There we go. I don't know what was like the number art different of this one, but yeah. Ray gets the exception. Come on, the water's so warm. What? No, I didn't. Oh, okay. Okay, Cotton. I'm pretty sure I did have a 9 already for that, but that's fine. And Silver Veil Hollow. There we go. Did I miss anything? I don't think I did. Oh, this 8's getting full as well. So many 8s. Okay, well, we're on the last pack. This song's safe for stream, right? I'm gonna assume it is. It's under Stream Beats, isn't it? Stream Beats Originals. We're gonna hope so. I'm still alive, right? Okay. I didn't even know that was that. All right, Shy Lily, you're the final pack. If I get the card here, I'm gonna kind of cry, but at this point, it is what it is. Because knowing my luck, I do get the stuff I need in the last pack. In the last pack, and you didn't land in the trash can. Okay. Lab Chat, Scuffling, Glow Stick, Cocoa Nuts, Limu, Akumi, Power Grid, Hollow Strumbling Cradle, 9 Sky, and Akumi. Bro, Akumi, you've showed up like so many times. The fuck? Well, we did not get Fifi's Feet card. That's, oh well. We got so many 8s for Akumi, though. And hollows, too, especially. You can hide back here. Cradle, you can add here. And that is it for the pack. I think we only got that one thing. We got 2 10s. And, was it Juniper? Yeah, Juniper. Oh, wait. Juniper. Wait, are you the same VTuber for the artist? That's sick if it is. Oh, yeah. Just these 2 as 10s. A bunch of 8s. And our 9 cards. Some of these might be double. Let's see here. Sky, Cotton, Bow, Rain, Sanson, Vienna, Limu, Neanners, Cotton, Buff Pup. Also, we got another Buff Pup. Just Coconuts, Heavenly Hollow, Tricky Hollow, Akumi, not Hollow, unfortunately. Akumi, Ikumi and Akumi, Sarwe, Hollow Silvervale, Heavenly. We might have a 9 Heavenly. Did I pass it? I don't think I did. It's not Hollow, right? No. Hannah. Okay, we did have an Underbow. Ein, Vey, and ChaCha. Alright, well, unfortunately, no luck with the Fifi card. But